Welcome back to Virtual Trade. I'm joined once again by new trader Jenny Horne. Jenny, welcome back.
Thanks, Scott.
Today we're going to have an interesting look into the account itself. So in other words, Jenny, we're going to look at the portfolio and understand a little bit better about what's the net liquidating value of the portfolio, how much cash is there in the account. We'll look at different things like that. So we'll kind of understand sort of the accounting part of the platform. Does that sound reasonable?
I think that's great because I really have no idea how to see how much cash I've lost or gained. So that's really important, I guess.
Right, and also how much cash is available. And then we'll talk, a little bit about, well, if I'm just using my cash, we did refer earlier to margin, the ability to borrow money to purchase beyond the original amount of cash you put in. So we'll show you where to find all of that on the Thinkorswim platform.
Great.
Okay, and this is an important part because, like you said, understanding not just the numbers themselves, but what's behind them and what can I do with the account.
Yes,
forward.
like if I can still spend more cash or something like that. Exactly. It's very important.
Sure. All right, well, to get started on that, it's pretty simple, Jenny. We're on the Monitor tab. So what we're going to do is, we're right now on Activity and Positions. And of course, you can see the portfolio, Jenny's portfolio that we put together. One quick way to look here to see how things are going is you can go to the P&L Open column.
Okay.
And remember what this means. Profit and loss, P&L, open since we opened those positions.
Okay, so not since the open market today. Just
exactly.
Since, okay, that's important.
Yeah, some people do get confused.
Yeah.
Since the opened the position. And so if you go down to the very bottom and say, well, how are we doing overall on this particular day? It's looking okay for the portfolio.
Okay, but the parentheses all mean negative, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can see as you go down your list of stocks, some have had, since we opened the position, have in parentheses, have had a loss. Mm-hmm. Again, now remember, these are all just paper losses, of course, right? It would only be a loss if you actually closed it at current prices.
Right.
So it's just telling you so far from the original price since you opened that position, and you can see the overall totals are still on the positive side.
Right, $1,200 isn't so bad.
So far so good in our paper money portfolio, okay? All right, now to get into some of the deeper numbers, we're gonna go to the account statement, Jenny. So why don't you go ahead and click on that. We're still staying in the Monitor tab. And one of the first things that you'll see up here is cash and sweep. And you can see it's closed right now. You may have to make sure that you open that up to be able to see some of the numbers in the account itself. Now, cash and sweep is an important area to look at details of trades that you've made, any kind of cash that goes in or out of the account, deposits, dividends that are credited to the account, all these things. It's sort of like a ledger of account activity in your
account balance, almost on like your credit card statement or something like that.
Now, one important thing about this when you're looking at the cash and sweep is that choosing the amount of time you want to look back on. Now, the default is 1 day. That's not much information. So if you just click the drop down, again, you can click here and say, well, let's tell you what, Jenny, we'll just go back 7 days. Right? And you can see, all right, that gives me a lot more information. Here's the 7 days we're going back. You can see the cash balances in this account haven't changed because we haven't added any more stocks.
Right, okay, that's good to know.
Okay, but if you did have, you could see commissions, fees, if a dividend came in, a wire transfer, that would all show up here.
Great.
One easy place to find all that information. Now, there's another number that we want to look at. What is this balance number? All right, well, that balance is a cash balance. Now, as you recall, Jenny, we started the account off with how much? $100,000, right?
I believe so.
Yes, that's what, paper money, of course, right? And then we purchased stocks. Now, how much of that original cash is left? Well, there you go, $8,445.
That's a good amount of money still.
Right, yeah, absolutely. But we put most of it into the stocks in the different sectors. And we
we're
even
not completely dry yet.
No, there is still some room of your original cash. So if you ever want to know what that number is, that balance is a positive balance. So that is your original cash. That's your money. You can use it till it's all gone if you want. And here's the other thing. If you wanted to go and purchase another $100,000 worth of stock, you would be able to do that on what's called margin. But very important, once you go past 8,400 and down to zero, it will start to go negative. So in other words, if you purchased, let's say $10,000 more worth of stock, this would now say minus 10,000.
Okay.
All right, well that $10,000 is actually being borrowed to
Right.
purchase more stock, and that's called purchasing stock on margin.
But this is a good way to see if I do decide to go negative, how much I'm really borrowing, so I don't lose track of the margin that I'm trading on.
Exactly. And as we've referenced before, if you're borrowing or that money, that number is negative, that shows you how much you're borrowing. And of course, there's a periodic finance fee for that, of course. Okay.
Yeah,
and of course, that'll show up right here in your account statement. So that's an important number. Now, what other numbers here are important for us to watch? Well, equities, which is what this portfolio mainly is. You can see them all here. This gives you actually sort of a net liquidating value of your actual, I'm sorry, not liquidating value, it gives you the value of the equities or stocks in your account. So if you add this number, about 9,200, with the cash balance of about 8,400, this is 92,800 and 84, that should come out to right around 100,000.
Right, okay, so this is really how much we've already invested.
In terms of equities, right, exactly.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea of where you stand, how much you have in terms of equities or stocks in the position. Remember, a lot of this information, Jenny, can also be viewed up here under the accounting column. So you can see right here where it says cash and sweep 8,400. All right, so that's another quick way to reference this, even if you're just looking at charts.
Now, is that always there? So that will always be there if I need to check quickly or something?
It will be, unless it's closed. Now, of course, I'll click on account info here and you're not seeing it, but always remember the little sort of triangle will open or close any of those drop downs. All right, so those are the numbers that we're looking at. Those are the important numbers to us. I'm going to take us all the way down to the very bottom where it says account summary. And again, one of the numbers you'll see here is net liquidating value. So if you wanted to know, Jenny, if I were to sell all my stocks and close the portfolio down, how much cash would I have in the account? That tells you basically if you were to sell all the stocks, okay, that's where you'd end up. And that makes sense, Jenny, because remember we started with 100,000. The positions are currently up about 1,300. So 100,000 plus 1,300 there's your
Around
number,
that
1,013.
So we haven't lost any money yet because we started with 100,000. We're not below that.
Right, exactly. So that shows you. Remember when we looked at the activity in positions, we saw this is up about 1,300. Oh, okay. So 100,000 plus the 1,300 in profits. Again, these are paper profits. They're not realized profits yet. But that's how that number comes up on the account statement. Now, one thing to remember, obviously, that number shows how much you would have if you liquidated the account. But of course, there'd be some charges in there and commissions as well that we'd want to have to deduct from that number.
Okay, so we wouldn't get to take that whole thing, but
Yeah,
pretty much
that
most
minus
of it.
commissions or any
Right.
fees. Exactly.
Okay.
All right, so these are some important things to remember on the account statement. And again, when you get here, make sure you pick the number of days to go back. Now, how far back can you go? Well, again, there's different ways you can do this. You can either put the number of days, or you can go to a specific time. Let's say, Jenny, I just want to go back to all the trades I did last year between June and Christmas, the end of the year. Okay, well, fine. Then just go ahead and put in those dates there, and then it will take you to just all the account activity in your cash and sweep during that time. So
Wow.
you can be very specific about what you're looking at.
So this will keep your history pretty much forever for your cash and sweep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to be
That's
able to go
awesome.
back there. A couple other things here we've talked about before, order history and trade history, that's fine. But the main numbers we're talking about today are the numbers, the cash that's available still in the account, how much value there is of the stocks that we own, okay? And then finally, what would be our net liquidating value if we were to go ahead and liquidate everything today?
That's great. And I like to see that we're not negative. That's obviously calming to someone that's invested $100,000.
Sure, absolutely. And on this particular day, and of course now, Jenny, remember this number will always go up and down. We just looked at charts and saw how they never go straight up or straight down. They tend to go up and down. There's peaks and troughs. So this number will be moving on a daily basis.
So would you advise checking this number often, or do you think it's more with a longer term portfolio, this is something to just check every now and then?
Sure, you can absolutely keep tabs on it. But let's just say we're spending a lot of time on charts and then trade tabs and things like that. Remember, you can always quickly access this number under the account info. And one thing I'd like to point out here as well, and you can see right there, there's our net lick, is that if you left click on this box, remember, if you're in public and you'd like to hide this and just have your numbers be private, go ahead and click on that little bar right there and let go. And now you can see just little asterisks instead of the actual numbers.
That's nice if you're sharing a computer or if someone's looking over your shoulder or something.
Right, that privacy mode is nice to have if you're out in public and you want to just keep your things, keep things private so no one else can actually see the numbers in your account.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, well those are the important numbers. The last one I think we didn't really talk about is stock buying power. Let's see if that was on our, let's go back to the monitor page. And if we open up the account summary and we look down here, you can see stock buying power. Yeah, so we still have about $109 worth of stock buying power. Now again, most of that would be borrowed money. After we got through about 8,500 of that would be borrowed money. But that shows you how much is available in your account, in a margin account, to go ahead and purchase more stock.
That's a lot of money.
Sure it is.
That's a little frightening.
Okay, well Jenny, that's a little bit of an overview of sort of the accounting part of the Thinkorswim platform and a couple easy ways to access those numbers.
That's great. I like to check these kinds of things just to know how the money is doing and the stocks are doing.
Sure.
So this is going to be very useful for me.
All right. Well, Jenny, that wraps everything up. How'd you like this session? Good?
This is great. Like I said, I didn't really know where to find this information, so this was super helpful.
All right, Jenny. Well, that's great. We'll continue to learn more about the Thinkorswim platform as we go, and I'm looking forward to our next session.
Thanks, Scott.